happened in the last 1 year or so, that now the broiler is no longer the cheapest protein source, as in. These are the issues we need to that. If we know that the balance of payment crunch the country is facing, and every $1 billion is a pain to fetch, and we are trying to keep a current account surplus and trying to keep our growth muted, which has an implication on the poverty and the inflation, which has a link to the food security. But at a macro level, if we are not being able to import, then we are going to be food insecure much quicker than what we think. We say that Pakistan is very high on philanthropy. There is no doubt that the people don't sleep empty, stomach. That might be true, but because the food is available in the country as a whole, so some people who can afford give to those who can't afford. But the country can't afford, that's a problem. So I think we need to set the tone now. Coming to your question, after just giving that the brief synopsis of the macro situation, we need to focus more on how to enhance the yield of produce we have, be it wheat, be it maize, as maize has been growing successfully for the past 20 odd years, and that's one of the feed for the milking cow and broiler and other stuff, but we import other stuff as well. How to substitute that import as a feed, how to improve your yield in milk and yield in wheat and other products, so we can be food secure. If we have a financial crunch, and the way the world is moving, the way the things are, if we are not able to import food, we would be able to survive. So the lending sphere from the microfinance perspective has to work for the farmer, where to improve yield. That's the key to it. And of course, we have to address the poverty levels and all that. So the second point is that we are coming up within last year, the inflation was about 30%. This year it is expected to 20%. The food inflation last year was close to 50% in the rural areas. And the inflation in the rural areas is consistently higher than the urban areas for the past 2.5 years in this very high inflationary environment. And the purchasing power is decreasing. Your overall GDP growth shrunk last year because of floods. The large part of the Sindh and Balochistan was vulnerable in that. So we need to address that to ensure that there's enough employment opportunity for the poor people of Sindh, Balochistan, Southern Punjab, KP, and other areas, where they can find employment opportunity to have enough to buy food. So that's one area they need to look into. But the other area that we need to enhance the yield, so that there's enough food available in the market, which we can have people to. So the other policy framework which we need to that there's a lesser government involvement in all these things. The allocation of resources within the food is not correct. We are focusing much more on the sugar and the stuff, which is and Pakistan is one of the highest diabetic country. So we need to focus from this to other crops where yields are better and where they can become your staple. So that's one area we need to work on, how to innovate, what new crops we need to focus on, how to improve the yields over there, what kind of financing mechanism and schemes should come in that identify A, B, C, D crops in certain areas that they have a better yield, and what kind of a soil enrichment, what kind of a fertilizer, what kind of other seeds and other stuff is required for them. So bring those products in the market, finance those products through microfinance institutions. So that's very important thing to go. And other thing is this, because of the high unemployment and high inflation, the stagflation we are facing in the economy, how to provide the job opportunities or how to provide the earning opportunities through through providing the financing through the microfinance for the poor people so they can afford the food. So there's two legs we need to address. That's why I stop here and may come back with the suggestions others would give. Thank you.
Sure, thank you so much. So now I would like to invite Mr. Saqib Siddiqui Saab, Head of Sector Development, PMIC. So Ali Khizr Saab just gave this macro synopsis of the situation, and with a stress on that lending spectrum has to lend to farmers to improve yield, and we have to innovate. So in this regard, just an extension of the previous question, that how does microfinance is helping in overcoming these barriers and providing financial access to these farmers, where we can have this capacity to not only enhance the yield but also to innovate in this domain?
Yeah. Thank you thank you for the question. And just to give you a context of what sort of financing needs are there. I mean, as we discussed in this morning as well, if you look at the 5 major crops, the total financing requirements for those crops in Pakistan is close to 2.6 trillion rupees. And the total financing that's made available is almost half of it. And what's even more ironic is that the small farmers holding less than 12 acres of land is about 90% of the 8 million farmers in Pakistan. And they're getting less than 10% of the total financing. So that's the quantum of the financing gap. And that gap actually is translating into several challenges that we just heard. We are an agriculture economy, heavily reliant on agriculture, 24% contribution in GDP, almost 80% of our exports being driven by agriculture and related products. But yet we are importing 9 billion rupees of food every year. So that's the pressure that we have on the trade that we are having. Secondly, if we look at Pakistan, for the 5 crops, rice, wheat, sugarcane, cotton, and maize, we are amongst the top 10 countries in the world in terms of our production. And yet, our yields are less than half of the global averages. So that's the spectrum here. I mean, look at the land that we're using for agriculture, and look at what we are getting out of it. So that's where the real challenge is. Financing is just one important element within this entire spectrum that we need to see of how farmers, just because of their inability to raise financing, are dependent on the local RTs and input suppliers, which, to start with, give them inferior seeds. Just look at maize. And in the last 15-20 years, just by changing the seed, the maize production has doubled in terms of its yield. Mm-hmm. And yet for other crops, we're still relying on the age-old seeds that the farmer is storing every year from its produce. So just by giving them access and the ability to buy good quality seed, there is significant impact on the yields that can be seen. Similarly, we're now talking about climate change and how the climate is affecting crop patterns and how it is now a month delay in terms of its harvesting and sowing. Farmer needs advisory on this. He's still stuck on the age-old tradition of sowing those crops in a certain month, in a certain way, putting certain fertilizers, without realizing that with this climate change and with the repetitive cropping pattern that it has followed, the nutrition levels of the soil has changed, and it doesn't necessarily require 2 bags of urea and 3 bags of DAP. It may require something else. So that advisory in terms of what the soil needs and what needs to go in is, with the pilot that we did at PMIC last year and this year, we've seen Just by giving them this knowledge of what needs to go in, simple soil analysis, simple measure of the nutrition level in soils, the yields have gone up by 28%. And the enabling factor was, in addition to providing them with loans, we linked them with an EdTech that could provide those services. So, in terms of financing requirements, what's important is it's not just commercial banks that have, over the years, drawn away from agriculture, it's microfinance institutions as well. 5 years back, if you look at the distribution of business segments catered by microfinance banks and non-bank entities, it was 20% in crop. Now it's less than 10%. So just these anomalies that we are witnessing caused by climate change and other factors, the financiers are now moving away from lending to crop and moving more into livestock and other segments. From PMIC's perspective, almost 65% of our portfolio is in rural areas, so it's very close to our heart to really make sure that the farmer, who is responsible not just for our food security, but the contribution that it has in our economy is not left out. So from our perspective, what we're really trying to do now is look at the entire ecosystem of agriculture, particularly from the perspective of a small farmer. And that is why we're now designing loans that can help them secure inputs, that can help them secure small farm implements. I mean, the West is moving to precision farming. We can't have that because of the small land holdings that we have per farmer. But yet now we see a lot of these small handheld implements that can come up and really help farmer in securing the produce and cutting down on the post-harvest wastages. So we're designing products for those. We're linking up with institutions that can provide farmers with advisory. And that's the package that we really want now for the MFIs and the institutions to take forward and start investing through that. And what we really are now keen is that perhaps the institutions would also need to see the amount of loans that they have designed. I mean, previously it was a 40,000 loan to a farmer, and that's it. But now if you look at the per acre requirement on wheat, it's about 50,000 rupees per acre. So even for a small farmer with 4 acres of land, you really can't help him with 50,000 rupee loans. You have to rethink and look at the holistic side of what farmer needs to make sure that the crop is good, it has good yields, and there is increase in income. So from our perspective, we're working on those products. We're linking up with input suppliers. We're making sure that more financing is available. We're trying to look out of the country as well, trying to secure international funding for this. So yes, the sector really needs to think again in terms of whether just because of this climate-related issues and challenges with agriculture, do we really want to leave them out and look at other places, or is this something that Pakistan really has a competitive advantage in?
Thank you very much. So I would now like to turn to Mr. Aftab Alam, Chief Business Officer, Khushhali Microfinance Bank. Sir, Mr. Saqib Saab from PMIC just highlighted a number of dimensions that go beyond the simple act of financing. So mainly my question is about the financial product design. For example, Khushhali Bank is a huge, massive portfolio of agricultural finance, and how this mechanism or the financial product design can be rolled out that factors in the climate action or the disaster resilience lens, or of course this enabling environment where they can have access to knowledge where information asymmetry is lacking. So how can banking institutions and microfinance institutions can collaborate with agricultural stakeholders to design tailored financial products that support sustainable food production and distribution? I mean, what role Khushhali or the microfinance banking sector can play in that?
Okay, thank you so much. I think, yes, there is a huge scope for collaboration. Microfinance institution can foster like effective collaboration with various agriculture stakeholders and the Agriculture Extension Department, Ministry, and financial institutions and regulators. The product development stage starts with the need assessment. So the microfinance institution and microfinance banks, they with themselves or with the help of larger platforms like PMN, State Bank of Pakistan, SECP, or other similar bigger platform, they can collaborate with them, and they can like contact with farmers, consumers, exporters, distributor of agriculture produce, to understand basically the need of the market, the need of the farmer, and then they can like in the process they can like develop different type of value chain products with the different stakeholders in this ecosystem. They can like have a value chain with the distributors, with the marketers, with the producers, and with the input suppliers. In this way, the tailor-made product can be developed after knowing the need of the segment. Plus, through these collaboration actually, and through this process, we can like understand that what actually what like Saqib was highlighting the problems in the overall agriculture system, that it's not just the supply side and the financial thing which like impacts the productivity and produce. So through collaboration with the agri extension departments, with agriculture research institutions, with the and with the farmer organizations, we can like better understand those problems, and we can discuss with the academia and with the research institution that what actually could be the solution for these problems, and subsequently the product which meet the need of the day, which are technologically more approachable and accessible, because these days even in rural areas, in agriculture sector, almost everyone has a mobile phone and access to cellular phones. So different type of digital products and conventional products can be developed through these collaborations.
Thank you so much. So now coming to Dr. Sonu, CEO, Thardeep Microfinance Foundation. So at the closure, the panelists referred to technologically approachable and accessible, and also the digital product and technology to leverage solutions for food security. So in what ways technology has been leveraged to enhance the reach and impact of microfinance in addressing food security challenges, and how can you share some innovative technological solutions, because you have been working in the landscape of Sindh, especially in Tharparkar, concerning livestock. So what is this technological and food security nexus that is in action, and that's can be a workable phenomena for Pakistan, especially in the rural areas and economically disadvantaged areas?
I think there are two things that I will say first before going to answer this question. One thing, if we want to work with the farmers, we have to go back to the farmers. Mm-hmm. That is one of the most important, crucial issue now. We have all retreated back from the rural areas where the farmers are. We have come back to the urban semi-entrepreneur, which is yet to be entrepreneur. I think the landscape of the clientele has changed in the microfinance industry. Let's accept it. The second thing, I refer to a research which we did in 2004, which is a little older, that was basically for the food security analysis by an institution of Save the Children UK. when they went to the rural areas, they came up with the data that all families who secure loan from any source, whether they were indebted by the loan or not, but they were food secure because they would use that money that they took as a loan to buy the basket of the food. And now there's an impression that the money is not there in the rural areas. The liquidity is short. And then when the liquidity is short, most of the farmers, they are short or food insecure. So that is the perspective. Whereas the technology, I think in Pakistan, there's more than 80 million people who have this functional phone in their hand and on their palm. And so is in the rural areas. Everybody almost have the phone. And what we see now, there's a potential trend that people are now, linking it with the market, particularly the farmers. They know what is the, horticulture market in the market. What is the rate of the vegetables? What are the rate of the this and that? Where is the good market? Which market is more attractive? So I think that information they are seeking, they are taking, and they are leveraging. Same is you refer to the Tharparkar. Now Tharparkar from any truckload of the livestock doesn't go random to the market. Since last 2-3 years, they ask the rates. They know where is the market in Karachi or in Hyderabad where they can sell their animals in a better price and on a cash transaction. So I think the technology used on their own is there. We have been innovating it. We have been, acquiring the clients, loan acquisition through all this digital. People have more faith and confidence in digital technology now, because one thing which I think in people's mind now, there's an awareness that anything which has gone into the machine, whatever data, that is not going to be tempered in their own context. So I think they have faith, they have confidence in the technology. However, this technology use has to be promoted by the microfinance institutions. Now, microfinance institution has an issue. Because of the inflation and the interest rate, it's affordability. The farmer, whether it's in a technology or not, farmer has limited affordability, particularly with the high price loans. Secondly, there's a collateral issue, the guarantee issue. I think the farmers normally, they don't have guarantee. They have only one thing which they can pledge is the crop. And microfinance industry, as against the orthi or middleman, they don't take crop as a guarantee. They take tangible guarantee. So I think that is the second obstacle, whether technology is there or not. Third is a liquidity. So I don't see any problem with the awareness, with the education, with the need. Everything is there, and the technology is there. But the other factors, which industry has its own problem, which I think is a major obstacle to reach to the farmers. And see, somebody in the morning, they were referring that we have 20% portfolio of agriculture. Though this was on a paper, now it's in a digital, it would have more or doubled because it's in a digital era. What has happened, it is shrunk to 2 to 3%. Why? Because there's a climatic issue, and everybody knows now on the weather, they know that tomorrow is a rain, tomorrow is the heat, tomorrow is water scarcity, the channels is going to be shut for 15 days, so I will not have water for my crop. And the water scarcity is another area where there's a risk. Microfinance institution do not take major risk now in going into the financing the agriculture in particular. However, there has to be a chain. There has to be a supply chain. There has to be other multi-stakeholders come together, and there has to be parts where everybody takes their own role. But what you can do with the water scarcity, what you can do with the climate change, what you can do with this inflation, what you can do with this kind of the liquidity issue. Since last 2-3 years, what we have been observing, the RT who used to give the say inputs, agri inputs on the guarantee of the farm input to come, product to come, and then there was distributions. The fertilizer distributor, the seed distributors, they were all lending. Since the prices have gone up, this lending intake has reduced. Now technology is there, they know the rate, so people don't go to the market. They don't go to the distributor because they will charge on their own, and this will be unaffordable. So I think agriculture has become a very complex problem. It requires support. It requires subsidy. It requires insurance. It requires some very innovative thing other than digital technology. How to involve, how to go back to the farmer, particularly the 90% farmers Saqib referred to. 90% farmer, they are, I would say, as a layman and coming from a farming community, I would say they are abundant now. They have not been able to access even to the banks, the microfinance banks. So I think as an industry, we need to think about, along with the digital thing, along with supply chain, along with everybody's mind, how to go back and be connected with the farmers. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much. So now I would like to invite Syed Sajjad Ali Shah, MD, SAFCO Microfinance. And so your microfinance company also operates in the landscape of Sindh, and also it's a nexus of agriculture and livestock. And just like since Dr. Sonu highlighted many challenges, like it's not the yield or the output, but it's the liquidity, climate change, and also going back to the farmers at the community level. So coming to the policy angle, if we dig into the policy design, what kind of regulatory framework that is required? I mean, your own experience about the ground realities, and how policy makers and regulatory bodies, they can support the integration of microfinance into food security strategies to achieve sustainable and inclusive development. I mean, what are the loopholes, what is lacking, and how, this can be integrated into the design?
Thank you, Dr. Faria. I think poverty alleviation is all about aiding the food security. And food insecurity is particularly a fundamental issue of, the area where we are operating, and particularly in Pakistan as well. As far as, the data or statistics is concerned, around, the 10% of the world population is affectee of the food insecurity. And the recent World Food Organization's study is mentioning that around 850 million people are, suffering with the hunger when they are, spending their night in a day so far. So particularly the microfinance, is all about to, apart from, diversification and growth and, the scale we had, but still we have not, addressed the fundamental issue of the food insecurity. Just because, there are many multiple dimensions that we are not addressing together as an implementer, as well as the policymaker and regulatory framework so far. Like, individually, there are many case studies that we have impacted a lot with the microfinance particularly. But as a as a whole, when we look at the, figures that we are impacting so far, it is not particularly as a visible that we are making so far to, disseminate particularly as impact of the program, along with, the microfinance institution, as well as regulators or, the policymakers can do it. The rural area, particularly of the Pakistan, or where we are working so far, it is totally agri-economy based, the area, in which a lot of, land is available, but not for the cultivation, just because that there are many water insecurity issue, water shortfall issue, and also there are many, the seed particularly issues and hybrid and diversification particularly in that way. So, I mean, the policymakers must, take into consideration the agriculture sector, particularly as a priority sector for the growth and, ensuring the food availability, particularly in the rural areas, as well as the, the sector so far. As far as, the liquidity is concerned, to create an impact and to ensure the, the availability of financing, particularly for those farmers or, the individuals who are trying to enhance their businesses so far. I mean, lot of constraints are there. I mean, they are not able to take the direct financing from the financial institution just because they have not, high collateral available. They have not, the proper bookkeeping so far. Even they have not available the, the direct investment plans they wanted to have as a lending institution so far. So with that regard, we as a microfinance institution are, available to ensure that to provide insecure financing, to build the capacity of the individuals that they can build their investment plans as they can have available to invest their borrowed money, as well as to link with the market there as they can, get the good impact of the investment so far. So, in my view, the regulator must look into such obstacles that how they can, create a, enabling environment for particularly the farmers that they can access to not only the non-conventional financing, but the conventional financing as well. And also the sector has to be prioritized by the government as the agriculture economy can boost, and sort of innovation and rest of the technologies can be bringing into, instead of traditional cropping, as we can have high quality of production as well as high quality of food so far.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I can add, being a microfinance bank, what I would like to add into this, that from the regulator perspective, they should look into the financial inclusion initiative. Currently, State Bank of Pakistan, they have initiated so many financial inclusion programs, or that include training and capacity building, like National Financial Literacy Program State Bank is running, and now they have started Agriculture Financial Literacy Program. They have started so many initiatives for financial inclusion. But the major problem, because we are financial service providers, and what we can contribute to agriculture sector and to agri economy and to food security is that we make the access to finance easier. But despite all these initiatives of Central Bank of Pakistan and the regulators, the financial inclusion in Pakistan, like we all know, remains one of the lowest in the world. We are, I think, the third highest unbanked population in the world. So I think on onboarding side, despite all these initiatives, even Asan account, State Bank started Asan account, which is through which it is very easy to open an account and onboard and to be a part of a financial system. But despite that, so many, we are talking about digital initiative, that so many digital apps, fintechs, they have from 5 years, from 17 to 22, 23, they have started their initiatives in Pakistan. But despite that, the overall financial inclusion in Pakistan remains around 20% to 22%. That has not increased. So I think on regulatory side, the regulator should deeply look into it that despite all these efforts, despite that the account opening has been made so easy, why the uptake is not, I must say कि वो high भी नहीं है, but it is not to the acceptable level. Like in last 5 years, India's financial inclusion has been doubled. In 2017, there 44% of the adult population was banked, but right now there are 78% of their adult population is banked. But in these 5 years, Pakistan's unbanked numbers or the bank numbers almost remains the same. So that should be looked into it, that what actually is the problem in the financial inclusion and uptake of the farmers, or even not just farmers, but even the urban population, that why they do not become part of this financial system.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So coming to our last but not the least panelist, Mr. Imran Dhiloon, Chief Business Officer, JWS Pakistan, a microfinance company. So just building on what the other panelists mentioned about that, since your organization works, has a very rich experience of working in microfinance landscape of Punjab, what strategies can microfinance institutions employ to ensure long-term sustainability and scalability of their food security initiatives while balancing social impact and financial viability? And also a few thoughts around the issue that has been highlighted by Mr. Aftab Alam. So, what is the level of financial inclusion? Is it happening in Punjab based on your experience at the grassroots level?
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Food security now become the national issue of Pakistan, everybody knows. And other participants, panelists, give their feedback. In Pakistan, we see that we are agriculture economy, and contribution of agriculture in our GDP is 24% and 37% labor force linked with, associated with agriculture. I just want to share the numbers that we are the 5th largest producer in milk and sugarcane. We are the 7th largest producer in wheat and 9th largest producer in rice. But as earlier shared, that it is very unfortunate that in Global Hunger Index, our numbers, we are stand at 99th out of 121 countries. 8 to 10 million people are experiencing high level of food insecurity. In the case of Punjab, and specifically my organization, our penetration, we are working in central Punjab. And central Punjab, the main crops are where we are working, basically we are based in Gujranwala, wheat and rice. The small farmers had lot of issues, lot of hurdles they are facing, as discussed other people's. I just like to share our experiences and the case study that we have done with small farmers with the support of PMIC and earlier with PPAF. Basically, we implemented an agriculture value chain projects with small-scale farmers. The small, when we talk about small-scale farmers, that come in our mind that the land holding less than 12 acres, but we select the borrowers, farmers having land holding 5 to 7 acres land. What actually we should do with them. Basically, we organize the farmers in different farmers groups. We give them credit, and earlier Saqib said that advisory services or consultancy services are very, very important to increase the awareness among farmer community. We basically, when we give them credit, and at the meanwhile we work for backward linkages with input suppliers, fertilizer companies, seed companies, and pesticide companies, and forward linkages with POSCO, and push them to sell their crop on local market, on true open market in true price. We also aligned with other agriculture stakeholders, Agriculture Extension Department, who provide extension services to them. With the collaboration of that department, our team, we conduct soil testing, water testing, laser leveling for farmer community. And a series of training was conducted with them to aware them and to build their capacity regarding how to use quality seed, how to use quality fertilizer, pesticide, how they can incorporate latest farming techniques, how they can improve their yield. And later on, we conduct impact assessment study over it, and it clearly shows that in terms of yield, it improved 20 to 25%, and and in terms of cash access, previously they were took cash from middleman Aarti, and now they come out from the trap of middleman Aarti. So I think such type of value chain projects can be designed and replicate across the Pakistan. And despite of that, we should move forward for integrated farming techniques. And integrated farming techniques can contribute to increase our yield, to increase our productivity. We should move forward to invest in, if we talk about the long term of microfinance, microfinance can invest in solar panels for solar tubes. Microfinance can play a role to invest in warehouses, can invest, provide food storage facilities for them, because these are the challenges that are being faced by the small scale farmers. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, for a quick second round of intervention by all panelists, I would request that I will going from one panelist to another, that are there any specific policy recommendations that you would like to propose to enhance the role of microfinance in addressing food security challenges at policy level? Maybe just one or two that is direly needed right now for integrating it into the policy paradigm, starting from Ali Khizr Saab.
Thank you. So I'll pick up on the issue where I left. So the need to be the capacity building of the microfinance institutions, and in terms of developing products, and in terms of creating education for the farmer to be more innovative in terms of improving their yields, in terms of innovating and getting to the new products. So that's one area which is very important. We need to develop the capacity of the microfinance institution and the other lending institution. Then they perhaps have to do the partnership with the development agencies and to create that. One area is this. And the other area is about generally on the poverty level, the people who are there, how to bring those kind of entrepreneurial schemes over there where they get the employment of those who are out of the job because of the lack of work over there, to do something beyond the agriculture, so that in the rural setting they can expand the lines over there, so, to survive and to buy, so there one is from the supply side to develop the capacity, innovation of the new products and enhancement in the yield of the existing. The other is on the demand side, to provide other than the agri jobs or the employment opportunity for the rural areas or the customer of your, so they can afford the food. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
I think I have one recommendation as a sector, within we should have a comprehensive study particularly to design how we can have a, risk-resilient products to ensure that risk appetite should be on particularly food insecurity. So being a sector, we should put our, sort of investment to ensure that the feasibility must recommend us what kind of product we should have in our basket to ensure that the food security may be ensured accordingly. Secondly, I will recommend for the policymaker or regulators to enhance the, the engagement of the stakeholder, particularly as a public-private partnership. I mean, there are many success stories, particularly within our country as well as, the India. We have seen that with the public-private partnership, a lot of initiative, particularly in the agriculture sector, has been taken, and those has created impact, particularly for the, reducing the food insecurity. So I will recommend to government or policymaker, even regulators, to look into that segment as well.
Thank you. So please.
Thank you. Just a couple of suggestions. One, if you look at India and Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, just across the region, and you see how microfinance and rural development that has happened there, it's largely because of the directed lending from that the central bank actually mandates on the commercial bank. That hasn't happened in Pakistan to that extent. I think that's one area where we really need to see that perhaps with a lot of private sector banks in Pakistan, will that really work? But still, if that lending could be directed to rural areas, to microfinance and institutions. So one. Secondly, if you look at the various government schemes that come the way, whether it be a Kisan package or agri support products and services, a lot of that is directed from commercial banks. Just to give you the context, we were experimenting, PMIC was experimenting with EWR, electronic warehouse receipt financing. And since I'm borrowing from commercial banks, I borrow at KIBOR plus, and then I have to lend with a margin on it. So that's close to around 29%. So that is what I can offer the farmers in terms of EWR financing. Commercial banks are able to do it at 6% because they're able to tap into that government scheme where this financing is heavily subsidized. And being non-bank entities, no microfinance institution or even PMIC can have access to that facility. And if you look at the microfinance banks and other commercial banks, and if you take out Khoshali and NRSP Bank, which are primarily rural focused, how many other banks have outreach in rural areas and how many of them are working with farmers? Well, on the flip side, if you look at the non-bank entities, a large portion of their portfolio is in rural areas. So I think they're more receptive in terms of their ability to extend that money to the farmers and to the ones that need those services. So I think that's another area that we can perhaps see, that if the non-bank sector could also be able to tap into this facilities. Thirdly, if you look at other countries, a lot of development agencies, donors, they still continue to fund microfinance there. They still continue to work with development agencies and NGOs and other sectors, even with microfinance players. That hasn't happened in a few years back. All these agencies stopped putting in the support that they were initially extending to microfinance. So I think that's another opportunity now that we can perhaps look into and tap into those development funds, impact investors to come in and work with agencies in Pakistan. Lastly, for the organizations, BRAC, which is one of the largest provider of microfinance in Bangladesh, is also the largest provider of seeds in Bangladesh. And institutions like Grameen and BRAC and Avishkar in India, they have created verticals around agriculture products and rural products that come out. Unfortunately, in Pakistan, only with the exception of NRSP, who has a rice processing plant and a storage facility, not many organizations have looked beyond lending and creating verticals that can support farmers and clients in rural areas to expand that as a business and the value chain of how financing actually affects their lives. So I think that's where some of the organizations really need to see that if you're not looking at the ecosystem, the entire value chain, just bits and pieces won't really make that sort of an impact in the lives of the poor.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have to understand a very basic principle that urbanization in Pakistan is on a very high rise, increasing on a daily basis. But they have to be fed. And who's going to feed them is the farmer from the rural areas.
Yes.
So I think it's not the food insecurity with the rural poor. I think this notion has to be very clear. This is the food security in urban poor, because they will be priced, they will be, having the less food coming from the rural areas, or they will be dependent on the imported food. So what I'm proposing is a very simple thing. See, what are the issues? Issue is simple. There is no specific fund, even fund by the government. Government announces funds for the youth, which is good. They need money. But I think we have to have a specific subsidy coming in for the agriculture, and when I say, microfinance institution, let's care for the microfinance institution themselves first. If they survive, they will, of course, go to the farmers. There's a big challenge for the survival of the microfinance institution at this point in time. How they are going to sustain their level of operation where they are in the situation, economic situation they are fallen. So I think the government has to come back to this industry, which has never came to this industry, and support it, and see how they can create funds, maybe climate fund, how they can create agriculture fund, how they can support this institution, and make sure that these institutions go back to the farmers with the subsidy, passing on the subsidized loans. Secondly, I think insurance is a climate insurance. We have been talking this from this morning, is important, and which cannot go on to the scale until and unless it's then subsidized, provided subsidy from the government or from any financial institution. So there has to be a subsidized climate insurance. So people, do not fear from the microfinance industry, do not fear from the risk that they will be facing if the crop fails. Their recovery is on a stake. So I think these two issues have to be taken into consider. The institutions strengthening is one of the major concerns nowadays, because everybody is trying to survive on their own without liquidity, much liquidity needed, which is not available. If government or any stakeholders, the state bank or a financial institutions, they have lots of money, but they're, if they can avert their risk towards these issues and come with a very aggressive kind of mood, I think things will change in the future.
Thank you. So please.
I think from a farmer's perspective, at this time, the cost of delivery of institution is high, and that cost is passed to the communities, farmers. But farmer already paying a high cost in shape of agriculture inputs. I think so, the subsidized markup schemes should be introduced. Subsidized markup funding will be available, especially for microfinance institutions who are working at grassroots level for small-scale farmers to address their financial access. And secondly, regulator and policy holders create conducive and enabling environment for local investors. I think they push educated peoples who in the agriculture field, who invest in agriculture in shape of to construct warehouses, to construct cold stores, and government will support them and incentivize them. So I think the food insecurity issue may be addressed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may add, like earlier said, regulator ke point of view se one serious review चाहिए and reorganization of their efforts for financial inclusion, because जब तक financial inclusion नहीं improve होगा तो access to finance नहीं increase होगा. So despite all the efforts which government has made, which regulator had made, like I said, the ratio from last 5 years remain 20-22%. One. Two, like Ali Saab earlier said, that second thing, which is capacity building on both demand and supply side. Supply side pay, because although the number of institutions have increased, the number of borrowers have increased, the access has increased, but there is no actually innovation. We as a country, आज तक हम किसानों के लिए कोई यानी कि एक कन्वेंशनल प्रोडक्ट है कि क्रेडिट कार्ड, हमारे पास कोई किसी कमर्शियल बैंक ने, किसी माइक्रो फाइनेंस इंस्टीट्यूशन बैंक्स ने आज तक हम एक कोई इस तरीके का एक कन्वेंशनल प्रोडक्ट भी नहीं दे सके फार्मर्स को, एक्सेप्ट के उनको हम टर्म लोन देते हैं कि आप अगली फसल पे वापस कर दें. While compared to Pakistan, India has launched this Kisan credit card back in 1988, and over 190 million farmers, they have that credit card. So quickly, if I complete. Again on the regulator side, our expectation from PMN, from State Bank of Pakistan, from PMIC, the organizations, that they should take up the issue of like this cost. Like my colleagues were saying, microfinance is a cost-heavy business. The operating and administrative cost is already very high, which ultimately is passed on to the farmers and to the small farmers. बट उसके साथ साथ जो एक मॉडल है उसकी जो कॉस्ट है वो तो पास ऑन होती है, एंड लाइक दिस सेट कि कॉस्ट ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस इज हाई, जो रिसोर्सेज फाइनेंशियल फंडिंग अवेलेबल है वो हाई कॉस्ट पे है. बट साथ में जिस तरीके की गवर्नमेंट की फीसेज होती हैं, मैं मिसाल दूंगा कि नादरा, फॉर एवरी वेरिफिकेशन यू गो ऑन नादरा पोर्टल दे विल चार्ज यू 50 रुपीज़. So that cost is passed on to the farmers or to the clients. So I think उनको subsidize करना चाहिए if we want to improve the financial inclusion and overall lending. And then, for example, बात हो रही है different agriculture advisory services की, जिसमें digital advisory services हैं या e-commerce के platforms हैं या microfinance institution and bank, if they want to like introduce, even छोटी सी चीज़ है कि if we want to send an SMS, तो SMS की cost which was like 0.5 paisas 6 months earlier, that has increased 4 times and it is right now 2 rupees per SMS. So from the regulator side, these things should be subsidized so that the financial services, they remain affordable for the small farmers.
Sure. Thank you very much. So in the interest of time, we will now directly move to the Q&A session with the audience. Please, sure.
इसको ऑन कर दें प्लीज जी. Do we have any questions for the panelists? So there's one over here, one over there. We're going to take 3 questions together. So आप इधर आ जाएं. In the interest of time, I'd request you to keep the questions brief, please. There's one there and there's one there. Do we have any on that side?
Should I start?
Ji, please.
Yeah, my name is Shahan. You mentioned that commercial banks get special leverages, special programs that are helpful for farmers. How can microfinance industry tap into that? Is it clear?
नहीं दोबारा.
Okay, so the commercial banks you mentioned get special programs like for farmers. Khushali. Yeah, from Khushali, right. So how can microfinance banks tap into the same programs? Because you said you get it from the commercial banks, then you have to lend it forward. So that means the end user gets higher cost, right?
Okay, thank you so much. Saqib, we're going to take 3 together and then we'll come back to it. There was one right there.
This is Rashid from RCDP. First of all, there are good insight from panelists. As they have shared regarding the food security, we are in very good number in the production. But there are some 2 figures which I want to share, then I have a question. We as a nation, 99th number out of 129 nations, which are facing food security in global hunger index. And another survey in Pakistan, that is National Nutrition Survey, conducted 3 years before. And in this survey, they have concluded that 36% of the nation are face food insecurity. So question is that, so first question is that, who is responsible for food security in Pakistan? And second, in microfinance sector, how we can effectively use microfinance product and services with embedding with other services like you can say value-added services or extension services to make the product of microfinance for effective in the contribution of food insecurity. Thank you.
Thank you.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम. मोहम्मद सलीम फ्राम मोबिलिंग माइक्रोफाइनेंस बैंक. और मैं अभी स्टूडेंट हूँ माइक्रोफाइनेंस का, लेकिन मेरे कुछ क्वेश्चंस हैं मेरे पैनल से. एक्चुअली हमें थोड़े से जो चैलेंजेस का सामना है वो उसमें आपको पता है कि जो एवरेज लैंड साइज़ है एक फार्मर का, आई थिंक वो 1 एकड़ टू 1.5 एकड़ है. और अगर हम कॉस्ट की बात करें, क्योंकि लैंड का साइज़ कम होने की वजह से जो कॉस्ट आती है कल्टीवेशन पे, वो एक तो वो इंक्रीज़ है जो कि फार्मर के लिए चैलेंज है. और सेकेंडली जो काइबर और प्लस जो हमारे मार्कअप रेट जो हम कस्टमर से चार्ज करते हैं और कस्टमर को जो आउटपुट आती है उसमें जो कस्टमर का मार्जिन है खुद का फार्मर का, वो बहुत कम रह जाता है. तो मेरे ख्याल में एक ये चैलेंज है. और सेकंड मैं बात करूं कि जिस तरीके से 12 माइक्रो फाइनेंस बैंक हैं और वो इंडस्ट्री में फार्मर को लैंड कर रहे हैं, लेकिन जो लैंड साइज़ है वो तो सेम है सबके लिए. अगर मैं एक फार्मर हूं और मेरे पास 2 एकड़ की लैंड है और मैं 5 से 6 बैंक से लोन लेता हूं, लेकिन पर्पस तो वो सिर्फ 2 एकड़ की लैंड है जहां पे मुझे इन्वेस्ट करना है. तो आई थिंक जो मेन प्रॉब्लम है जिस पे गवर्नमेंट को और जो है हमारे रेगुलेटर को सपोर्ट करना चाहिए वो ये है कि पहले तो हम लैंड मेजर करें, हमारे पास कल्टीवेशन के लिए लैंड कितनी है जिसके ऊपर हमें इन्वेस्ट करना है, जिसको हमने सब्सिडाइज रेट पे जो है वो लैंडिंग की सर्विसेज प्रोवाइड करनी है, और तो मेरे ख्याल में फिर चीज़ें कुछ और बेहतर नज़र आएंगी. थैंक यू.
Okay, thank you. Since the last one was a comment more than a question, if there's one more question that we have from the audience, we'll take 3 questions. Do we have anyone over there with a question? Oh, there's one over here. Could you please bring it to Sikandar? Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Sikandar. I'm from Cash Foundation. Basically, it's really good to know, and we've learned a lot from all the panel about all the issues that we face right now. But my question from all of you would be, like in Kashfi, basically, we're not really focusing on agri as such because according to our mission, most of the farmers or the customers in this sector would be males. So we are mostly focusing on female, but I see a few of the MFBs as well. As Saqib also highlighted in his session, that a lot of people who were actually focusing towards agriculture have actually started to back down. So how are we going to actually improve the situation that we're all talking about right now? Secondly, with companies like PMIC, I mean, if we have those funds which are being offered to the commercial banks, why aren't they being directed through you guys or through PPA for that matter, or any other company intermediaries towards us? So I think maybe PMIC can actually play a role in that, in which the cost of borrowing will be reduced from your side as well, and you could probably earn a little less and pass that over. So are there any ways of actually you contributing towards that goal as well? And my second question would be towards the capacity building. Which organizations could finance companies collaborate towards, which you guys can maybe direct towards? Like PMIC is only towards lending now, so is PPF still working on the capacity building and all those projects in which they can actually come forth in all these things? So a few questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sikandar, for that question. So I'll just re-summarize the questions for the panel, and then I think the first one was specifically for you, Saqib. And the question was essentially, what kind of programs can exist for microfinance sector and banks, like the ones that exist for increasing uptake of agri in the commercial sector? So that's the first question. I think that's something you spoke about.
I'll take the first question and the last question that Sikandar asked together. I think that's the challenge really for the non-bank sector at the moment. A lot of these government schemes, they're channeled through commercial banks. And with State Bank actually administering those, the non-bank entities cannot access this. And this is something that we even discussed with ACCP in the last meeting that I had with them, that maybe some of that part of that fund could be then routed, and SCCP regulated entities could be allowed to tap into that. And so that when you're talking about level playing field for both non-bank and bank entities, I think that's where this sort of subsidy that is available for rural areas, for farmers, could be then served also through the non-bank entities, because microfinance institutions have a much deeper penetration in rural areas. So I think we're advocating that. We're taking it up with ACCP. We're also put up requests with the State Bank that if non-bank entities could also be allowed to tap into those facilities. So I think that's what I would want to say.
Thank you so much. And
Saqib, sorry, ये सिर्फ non-bank financial institution के साथ ही नहीं है. There are certain refinancing scheme and subsidy schemes which are actually available for the commercial banks, but not for the even microfinance banks. While the microfinance banks, their agriculture borrowers are over 2 million, while all the commercial banks, they collectively contribute over 200,000 borrowers.
Great. So I think one of the questions was also on who does the onus of food security rest? And I think that question came from, like, it's a pertinent question. So who is responsible for food security in Pakistan? And maybe we can have the economists on our panel and, of course, Dr. Magan. kind of answer that question for us.
That's a very important question that who's responsible for food security. Development in Pakistan. Principally, agriculture is a provincial subject in terms of taxation. So, in terms of the service delivery, it has to be a provincial subject as well, where they do this, and the food security essentially falls in the purview of provinces. But yes, that's the main focus of this. It's the provinces, and within the provinces, different districts have to have their own food security plan within that. But at a larger scale, the problems the country is facing is, as it's the net food importing country, and it's a country where the balance of payment constraints are worse than ever. So that's a countrywide issue as well. So I think it's a joint responsibility of different bodies to work on different elements where you can ensure the food security in Pakistan from the perspective of availability of enough grains and other food materials within the country, and then that's penetration into different areas through better improvement in the overall productivity, water availability, and all that. But the nutrition, as you talk about, someone talked about that nutrition indicators and all that, those are the provinces things. But I think here the role of these, the federal and the provincial governments are there, and then the role of the big companies operating in Pakistan, and then they do take a keen interest in this. For instance, Nestle is one company which is into the dairy business, and they've been very proactive in terms of improving the nutrition level of Pakistan, and they've been doing partnership with the farmers to develop the dairy value chain. So then the textile companies, again, there's not food, but they go into this cotton value chain development and all that. So, but here the role, like the role of the Pepsi in terms of development of the potatoes of certain types, the role of the Unilever to come in terms of development of this tomato area. So those cereal making companies and different local and international food companies, and then role of the provinces and the role of the federal government, everyone is there. Then the issue is who will coordinate on that. So there may not be need of the coordination, but everyone should be doing their own role significantly. And here the what we need to see from the lens of the microfinance institution, they need to partner with all those into this. If someone is working in the dairy value chain, they may partner with Nestle to provide loan to their the marginalized farmer, and so on and so forth. So it's a very difficult question, but I think the role of all the players, government and private sector, have to play in ensuring the food security in Pakistan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ali. I think it's a collaborative onus is really the message from today. In the morning also, we were talking about the same things. The last question, I think maybe Saqib and Dr. Sonu, you could shed some light on the answer. The question on what kind of embedded value-added services can be used for reduction of food insecurity by microfinance institutions. And since we're short on time, I'd really request for quick responses. Thank you.
देखें, जहाँ तक माइक्रो फाइनेंस का ताल्लुक है और फूड सिक्योरिटी का ताल्लुक है, this is very kind of a thing. Say one thing, money means food security. Money means production, good production. Money means produce, high quality produce. So I think microfinance का role बड़ा essential है, लेकिन microfinance की reach को कैसे essential, important और access किया जाए, that is an issue. जब तक microfinance is not reaching to the end client, to the end farmer, सबसे बड़ा issue particularly in Sindh वो है sharecropper का. नाउ शेयर क्रॉपर 2 एकड़ भी लगाता है, 4 एकड़ भी लगाता है, 8 भी लगाता है. नाउ दिस शेयर क्रॉपर इज डिपेंडेंट ऑन 2 स्टेकहोल्डर प्राइमरली, एक लैंडलॉर्ड और एक आरती. हाउ टू गेट आउट ऑफ दिस साइकिल, और उसकी इंडिपेंडेंस है कितनी टू गो टू द माइक्रो फाइनेंस, एंड हु विल बी द गारंटर फॉर हिम to repay the loan, because the crop is pledged with the landlord. crop पे राइट सारा लैंडलॉर्ड का है. तो माइक्रो फाइनेंस का बड़ा कॉम्प्लेक्स सिचुएशन है कि किसको सपोर्ट करना चाहिए. ये कभी भी स्टेक होल्डर्स में डिस्कशन नहीं हुई है कि हाउ टू स्टेक होल्डर्स, हाउ द इंडस्ट्री गो एंड लुक फॉर दिस. जमींदार तो बड़ा खुश होगा कि मेरे हारी को पैसे मिल जाएंगे, मेरे फार्मर्स को पैसे मिल जाएंगे, लेकिन ये नहीं कहेगा कि जी क्रॉप पे भी इसका कंट्रोल होगा जिससे वो पैसे वापस करेगा. तो आई थिंक देयर आर अदर सेक्टर्स जहाँ पे माइक्रो फाइनेंस काम कर सकता है एज फार एज द फूड सिक्योरिटी इज कंसर्न, व्हिच इज द लाइव स्टॉक, पोल्ट्री, फिशरीज. आई थिंक दोज आर द एरियाज वेयर दे नीड नॉट मच पीस ऑफ लैंड, दे नॉट नीड नेसेसरली द मच इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, independent infrastructure, where we can, I think microfinance can invest, and the supply chain, value chain. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sonu. Dhilan Saab, just 1 minute, please.
Maybe I add something with regards to value added. I mean, we need to think on how we can, recycle the wastage, particularly in the agriculture sector. Lot of vegetable, fruits, and rest of the, agri output is being wasted many times in particular seasons. So we need to give, sort of a skill to those farmers that how they can, recycle the wastage to make the byproducts from those wastage. Those can be, the value added for particularly segments so far.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you to the panelists and to the chair for a riveting conversation. We'd like to end the session now with some souvenirs for the panelists. Dr. Saib, अगर आप सामने आके अपने panelists को please souvenirs दे दीजिए. Can we have the souvenirs on the stage, please? So we'll start off with Ali, since he's sitting right next to you. So Ali, this is a small memento for your participation in the panel.
मेरा नाम मोहम्मद शुएब है, मैं टीआईपी बैरियल का रहायशी हूँ. मैं एक होटल.
Next up, can we please have Sajad Ali Shah Saab? Can I please request Saqib to come and take the memento? Dr. Sonu, please.
यूँ बैंक की शराइत भी बहुत आसान है.
आपकी सबसे ज़्यादा तस्वीरें खींची हैं. Can we have Imran Dhilan Saab, please? And Mr. Aftab Alam. एक और चाहिए. And can I please request Naved Saab to come on stage to give a small memento from PMN to our very learned moderator. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Naved Saab. All right, we are going to quickly jump into our next session because our speakers for that are waiting for us. So I'd like to invite Yasir Ashfaq Saab on stage. So Yasir is going to have a very interesting conversation on the macroeconomy and microfinance with two veterans of the field, Professor Arsalan Razmi and Dr. Aisha Ghaus Pasha. Yasir, of course, needs no introduction. He is the CEO of the PMIC and has had over 20 years of working in the financial sector, focusing on financial inclusion and ensuring that even at PMIC, that even though microfinance is being professionalized, that mission drift is not taking place. So thank you so much, Yasir. Will you join us on stage, please? And the two speakers who are going to be joining us remotely are Professor Arsalan Razmi, who is at UMass Amherst. He's a professor there. And he has some very interesting recent work on the political economy of exchange rate management and the relationship between income distribution and the macroeconomic outcomes. So we're very, very happy to have him with us. And secondly, we have Dr. Aisha Ghaus-Pasha joining us, who is an economist and a former Minister of State for Finance and Revenue. She has decades of experience in social protection, public finance, and urban and regional economics. We still, the speech that she made last year at AMC-7 still resonates with us. So thank you so much, madam, for joining us. And I will now pass the baton on to Yasser. Will you stand here?
हाँ मैं बता दूँ वो आ गए ऑनलाइन ऑनलाइन आ रहे हैं वो Are we putting them online? All right, since we would like to hear these two very distinguished speakers, my request to you for the questions is that you write your questions on a piece of paper, raise your hand, and the ushers will come to you and take your questions. So, and then Zainab can, put that questions to both the whoever wants to answer that. So we already have Arslan Razmi. Dr. Arslan Razmi, as explained by Zainab, is a professor of economics. Okay. Do we have Dr. Aisha? Okay. Ji, Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saiba. And thank you, both of you, for coming for this session. I know it's very early for you, Arslan, in Massachusetts, in Amherst. And Dr. Saba, you were really committed to certain personal, matters, and thank you for coming online. So let me start with some introduction. Pakistan as a country and Pakistani economy is a dilemma which is very difficult to understand. And the only thing that comes closest to it is Pakistani cricket team. We win the toughest of the matches and we lose the easiest of them. And most of them on the last ball, as we did our IMF agreement, the last IMF agreement, so nothing comes close to that. In order to understand the economy and economic growth, it is very important to also understand the socio-economic conditions of the country, various endowments like land, capital, human skill, geopolitical situation, technology, and how much capital has been accumulated over the years. The economic indicators that we hear about every day these days and scare us have historical perspective, because they don't, just come up in a few months or a few years. So if we look at our country, we are considered a low middle income country by the World Bank. But if we look at the economic indicators, especially the Human Development Index, we are rated 161 out of 192 countries. And that is depicted through high mortality rate, literacy rates of only 60%, population growth rates of 2.55%, which is actually amongst the highest in large size countries. And also women empowerment, 145 out of 152 countries. And we are amongst the lowest in some of these indicators. The poverty head count is close to 40%. And if we keep on facing this challenging economic condition, there are certainly millions of more people going below poverty line. According to World Inequality Database report, top 10% of Pakistanis earn 42% of the total income per year, and the below 50% earn just 13%. So that's the inequality in the country that we have. This is in spite of the fact that we have a very young population, almost 60% below 30, good fertile land, natural resources, opportunities for tourism, and large diaspora, and the list goes on and on. Now, with these two distinguished economists, we would like to know how this situation can be reversed. So I will start my discussion. A simple question to both of you. Is there any hope that we would be able to have more inclusive growth in the next few years? And if the answer is yes, what are those conditions and factors that we need to work on? So let's start with Dr. Aisha. Sorry, we can't hear you. Is there an issue with the... Can please anyone check? Can you please check if you are on mute?
No, I'm not on mute.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. As I was saying, thank you so much for inviting me. This is an important area, an area of interest to me, and I frankly believe a discussion which is of utmost importance at this point of time in our, where we are in this country. Now, as you have mentioned, the current economic state, we clearly have been a country which is economically on the verge of very deep crisis. In the last year or so, there were twice, on two occasions I can remember, where the country was very, very close to being on the verge of default, if I can now be candid and use that expression. The important point also is that even before this, as you have indicated, the historical perspective has been is that even in times of growth, we have periods of growth, we have experienced growth. And why is it that despite the fact that we have experienced economic growth and at sometimes periods high economic growth, we have not been able to pull out the people the benefits of the growth have not been broad-based and have not benefited the majority of the people of Pakistan and the masses in particular, and they have not been able to benefit, or the growth benefits have not filtered down to the masses. I would think that the reason for that is that our growth rate really, growth hasn't really been so inclusive in character. And to name a few areas why, or factors why I feel that the growth has not been inclusive is that our focus, in fact, I'll name 5 at this stage. There are others, but let me focus on these 5 at this stage. The first is that our focus on human development and capacity development hasn't been to the point where it really should be. This is a large country. Our priority for social sector development, our investments in social sector development have been only marginal, ranging from 2 to 3% of the GDP at the maximum. So the focus hasn't been there, and resource allocation has not been there, so which we really need to address. The second, I would think, the reason is that this growth has not been in sectors where there is where the employment elasticity is high, or which are very employment intensive sectors. Let me give you an example of agriculture. If you look at the growth pattern historically in Pakistan, in periods of high growth, only or about 1/3 of the growth can be attributed to the agricultural sector, even though we claim that agriculture is the backbone of our economy. It accounts for 1/5 of the economy at this stage. But nonetheless, our focus really hasn't been there. Another important factor that I would highlight at this stage is the utilizing factors of production, which they possess in terms of what the labor force looks like. It's a large part of it is unskilled and semi-skilled. We haven't been able to give that kind of a human capital which is required and which will really, really improve and benefit the masses overall. A very high, at this point of time, the share of highly skilled labor in our labor force is only 17%. So imagine the kind of people we are producing and supplying into the labor market. Another important factor which I would highlight is the production of goods and services which are consumed by the poor people. Let me in particular point out to the consumption of food. What has happened is that over the period, our food security has actually not taken, it has not shown an upward trend, is on the downturn. Something like in the last 20 years or so, if I look at food production per capita, it's a decline of 4%. And that, so the availability of food is lower, is on the decline. And very importantly, another aspect, the affordability of food has also been compromised. Because if you look at the relative food prices and you compare the relative food prices to the overall price level, almost 34%, the increase is 34% in the last 2 decades. Development of selective regional development, leaving the rural areas behind, leaving the smaller provinces behind, growth is that again also contributes to poverty and lack of privileged access to common Pakistanis, and then lack of proper development of social protection system. Income transfers, consumer subsidies, and so on and so forth, are at this point of time, despite the best, which we have really, really promoted over the last few years, 5-6 years, are at this point of time only 1.4% of the GDP is allocated for income transfers and consumer subsidies for the poor. When the Asian Development Bank report, if you look at it, the average for middle income countries is something like 2.6%. So I think these are some of the factors that we need to focus on if we want to promote growth, which is inclusive and which is benefiting a larger segment of our population.
Thank you so much. So Arslan, same question to you. Is there any hope, and what should we be doing to get to a stage in the next maybe 10-15 years where we have much more, inclusive growth and growth at all?
Thank you, Yasser. Can you hear me? Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So first of all, I want to thank the organizers of the Microfinance conference for inviting me. And I want to thank Dr. Pasha for joining in. I agree. I agree with what Dr. Pasha said, and obviously human capacity development is a big part of the story. Okay, so first, but I would emphasize the causality a little differently. So first of all, coming back to the question of whether there's hope, there's always hope. right? And Pakistan has a huge internal market. That's a big asset. And at the stage of development that Pakistan is, there's almost no way but up. Okay, so that's the good part. I think the biggest challenge at this stage of development is not redistribution, it's growing the pie, right? And if you look at the trajectory of the countries that have followed an upward trajectory over history, right, following the Second World War, what you see is the biggest challenge is to shift labor from the traditional agriculture to the modern industrial sector, where the productivity is high. Right? So just by shifting labor from the traditional sector to the more modern sector, you raise the average productivity in the economy, which enlarges the pie for everyone and facilitates inclusive growth. Right? So looking at recent history, at least, the path to inclusive growth appears to be enlarging the pie through enlarging the sectors that have higher productivity. Okay. So Pakistan is a labor-abundant country. There's no scarcity of labor, right, as Dr. Pasha pointed out. And again, in this, at this level of development, usually labor-abundant countries grow by entering labor-intensive sectors that use a lot of labor. So garments, textiles, to take one example, right? Think of Bangladesh. Okay, or think of South Korea, okay, so which is now a technically sophisticated country, but started off with very simple stuff. Okay, so Pakistani growth, there have been periods of high growth, there have been periods of low growth, and as Dr. Pasha pointed out, we came very close to running into default mode repeatedly. Okay, long run story, had to shift sources into more productive sectors. But to get to the long run, we need to get the short run right. And what happens is a new government, for example, comes in. In the first couple of years, it has to be careful. It has to sign up maybe an IMF agreement, has to follow certain prescriptions, has to get the balance of payments under control, the trade balance. But soon it's time for the next election cycle. And so it has to start spending. And that brings in the fiscal and budget, fiscal and balance of payments deficits, and boom, you run into that constraint. So now the next government comes in, the same story all over again. So just to be brief, there is hope, but there are serious short-term issues which have to be addressed before we can get to the to discussing the long-run hope and the long-run trajectory that's likely to lead to hopeful inclusive growth.
So thank you for your response. And you know, you mentioned, Arslan, a couple of cases. Are there any good cases that we can follow? You know, are there any good countries? I mean, countries who have developed in the last 30, 40 years. And is there, you know, really hope? Because, you know, 40 years back, there was no South Korea, maybe as challenging and a competitor as it is right now, or Taiwan, or even, you know, Malaysia and Bangladesh, India and China. But now today, they are more, if we want to grow, especially through industrial growth, we have all those competitors to, you know, really compete with. So in your opinion, are there any good cases? And how can we compete with already, you know, the countries who are already at that phase of efficiency? Is that really possible?
Yes, again, you know, the cube up is obviously quite serious. So it was easier for Korea in the 1960s to pursue export-led growth because very few other countries were doing that, right? And the start was not glamorous, simple products, but since very few other countries were doing that, success was relatively easy. And now, especially with China and India entering the international markets, it becomes much, much harder. There's no doubt about that. The hope, I think, lies in the fact that China is now moving on. It's a country of 1.3 billion people, so moving on still means that there are hundreds of millions of people producing in highly labor-intensive sectors that Pakistan would like to export. But to some extent, China is moving on. And India hasn't, at this point, been the same kind of industrial success that China has. So again, we'll have to find, Pakistan will have to find its own trajectory, its own path. But I think the thing that I want to emphasize is that there's a large internal market. Internal markets are good for practice, for dress rehearsal, for exporting. There's a lot of consumer demand in that large internal market. There's a lot of consumer demand for labor-intensive products. There's a lot of demand for services that can be exported. And services are now becoming more exportable. Like in the IT sector, you can think of services that are now becoming more exportable. So there is hope, there are avenues, but again, I think the short-term issue has to be managed much better before we can even think of what specific sectors Pakistan can enter into now in order to avoid growth constrained by repeated balance of payments problems.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I can't be very specific, but I think one can always find ways to begin, and we are not even trying to begin at as far as I can see.
All right, thank you. Dr. Aisha, same question to you. Are there any countries or good examples that we can follow, or is it very, for each country, it is different and we need to follow our own path?
Thank you for that question. Actually, let me add on to what has just been said about this whole thing. While we can look around the globe and also learn lessons, what has happened, what things have been done right by other countries. If you look at South Asian experience, then the India, we really, the only thing that we can learn from them is that if you persist on a proper strategy of growth, it yields benefits. But their own inequality and poverty situation is not much better than ours. So, and if you look at Southeast Asian countries, you do see some good examples, particularly in the eastern region like Vietnam and so on and so forth. But let me look at the Pakistan example and see, I see a lot of hope. And looking at our history also, I see a lot of hope. We are a resource-rich country. We have good human resources. We are going through a youth bulge. They are our assets. The only thing is that we're not using these assets productively enough for them to really benefit. If you look at the East Asian experience, when they have gone through this youth bulge, their growth rates have enhanced. Why our growth rates are not enhancing is that we're not really using them in the best possible manner to improve our productivities and so on and so forth. So we have human resource, we have a very good land, we have natural resources. What we need is good policies to trigger them. We have talked about export-oriented growth. We have also talked about emphasizing on those sectors which we haven't yet emphasized enough on. When we talk about export promotion, we just focus on just the top sectors or so. Pakistan has to diversify its exports, and Pakistan has to diversify its export markets for us to really benefit and from global developments and, bring it for ourselves also, benefit from that. And the other thing is that get it out of the balance. If you look at the balance of payment situation, when we go in for higher growth, our balance of payment crisis comes in. Our booms and bust cycles are very clear. We go in for high growth, we are unable to sustain the current account deficit, and we go down as a country overall. We need to change and take some important decisions as to how we want to move forward and increase the pie, as the expression has been. Growth can be achieved. We need to design well-structured policies. We need to diversify our manufacturing base. We haven't put in enough focus on small, medium enterprises. We need to boost them. We haven't given enough resources to some of the important sectors, like the focus on IT sector, etc., has not been enough. We need to put in that. Then we need to continue, make sure that there is continuum in our policies that we are giving. One of the reasons that Pakistan is not a good place for investment over the last few years is that there is no policy continuity. This is one of the things that we hear most investors coming in and saying, devise good policies and implement them and stick to them. Devise changed policies. We cannot move business as usual at the way we have been running and structuring the economy over the last 70 years. Things have to change. We have learned our lessons, and if we haven't learned now, when will we? We've had experience situations of near a default in 1 year. What more wake-up call does we need? We have the policies for it. We know what to do. We need the political will to put them together. We need to change the structure of the economy. We need to diversify our exports. We need to focus on different areas. We need to build in human capital, which is more in line with the demands of the new world. We need to just have that consciousness, and I don't see that Pakistan, I don't really think Pakistan cannot make it. I really am optimistic that we can make it, but we will not make it with business as usual. Changed approach has to be adopted. This elite capture that we see, that policies are benefiting only a few segments of the population and only few sectors, and it's not broad-based, and the things have to change. And if you change them, I don't see any reason why they will not go forward.
Okay, so I know, you have been, and people would say you have been in the government, Dr. Aisha, for a very long time, but we will all understand that the constraints that you must be facing during your, whatever, whether you were finance minister in Punjab or at the federal level. Let's say you're given a free hand, right? What are one or two things you think are the most important that we need to address, and not necessarily, the economic policies, could be other things maybe, that you think that we need to address? Because some people say, population, growth rates, and, some people would say, this huge import bill. If you are given a free hand, what would you, two things that you would be doing?
Let me answer this a little candidly. And as you've referred to that I've been a part of the system to the limited extent that I have been, what is lacking is not the know-how as to how to move forward. What is the problem that we've had is that there is a lack of willingness to change things and change the status quo. When we talk about, when I was in the government, we were talking very strongly about having a new social contract so that we can have wise policies and come up with strategic interventions which may be different from what the country has been used to, but which will put us in the right direction. We need to, first of all, have the political will, have the social contract, have the consensus that yes, the agreement that we need to do things differently and run this economy kind of differently, because what we have previously done has not taken us out on a very sustained growth path, which a country like ours, the sixth largest populated country in the world, should really be putting in. So the lack of political will, the lack of stakeholder consensus as to this happening, that is the reason I was talking about elite capture a little while back. I would rank as the biggest hurdle in moving forward. If we put our minds to it, we can move forward. Because, see, this is, you can ask Mr. Salan here, the recipe is known. How do we put in? It's difficult. It will require sacrifice, but let the sacrifice be equally and proportionately, or rather proportionately be done by those who can take a bigger burden in terms of better policy measures. Let me give you an example. We wanted to devise a very strong fiscal policy, equitable fiscal policy, which will basically mean cutting back on expenditures, on some of the traditional expenditures that we've been incurring. We had so much problem. Then the question was making the taxation structure more progressive and more broad-based. Again, we had problems. Then on the, related to your sector, the main important area is broad-basing the financial access of finances to different segments of the population, financial inclusion that we say. These are things that we really know. We need to move forward. How to import substitute, what segments to put in. These strategies will not pay off in the first or 2 years, which is the focus of a government in time. How quickly will the benefits start reaping? No, these policies will take time, but you have to consistently follow them for them to reap benefits in the medium run, which may be in the next few years' perspective. So let me also say that this is, I would think, is a very major hurdle. And if the country can come up with this kind of an understanding that yes, we have to make the sacrifice, IMF program is essential. Getting back onto the IMF program, you all know how much of a difficulty that was for us. Even though it was a coalition government, nonetheless, we need to get our act together and we'll be able to do so.
Okay, thank you. Arslan, I'm aware that some of your students and colleagues have gone to become finance ministers in Latin America and Asia. Same question to you. What kind of policies, one or two, you feel that we need to implement? And if you can please come a little closer to the laptop and speak because there's some issue with hearing.
Is it better now?
Yes.
Okay. So I agree with the general gist of Dr. Basha's discussion, which is that the main bottleneck is the political economy one. Okay. The problem is there are 200 plus countries in the world. Right? Everyone kind of knows what the recipe is for success, yet very few succeed. Right? Why is that? So let's look at Pakistan specifically. In order to pay for imports are good. You want to import investment goods, you want to import consumer goods. Imports are good. But in order to pay for imports, you have to export. In order to export, you have to make sure that there are incentives, there are long-term policies in place. Right? Everyone knows that. Right? That's how China achieved that. We achieved what it achieved Vietnam, so on. Okay. So what's the problem? Well, the term elite capture was used, and the biggest, symbol of elite capture is what the government spending is spent on. right? What the biggest items are. Okay. Without going into too much detail, we kind of know the big picture there. We also know that the biggest economic sector in the country is real estate, which is not an export sector, cannot export land. Okay, those are entrenched interests, and it's hard to take them on. Who's going to take them on? Okay, appears like it's really hard to take them on. Okay, so if that's where the growth is going to be, if it's going to be in the real estate sector, right? Then you're going to constantly run into balance of payments problems. And everyone knows that's going to happen regularly. Okay. Why can't something be done about it? Again, that's political economy. Right? It's not a mystery. It's really hard to deal with entrenched political economic interests. And in order to do that, you have to have a government that has trust, that has a long-run vision, and I'm not taking political sides. What I'm saying is that you have to have some kind of stability, and you have to have a government that's confident that whatever it does, if it bears good fruit, it will reap the benefits of that fruit 5 years from now when the next election comes around. If the government doesn't even know if it's going to be there in 2 years, right? It's not going to take on entrenched interests, because it has to just make sure that it quickly deepens its base as quickly as it can, rather than focusing on the issues that we all know have to be addressed. Right? So again, I want to come back to the balance of payments. As long as that issue is not addressed, we are going to keep running into this problem. There's going to be very volatile growth, if any. And we all know it, and the biggest bottleneck is political, economic in nature.
Okay, my next question is that, we all sort of, feel proud that we have a very young population, which is, almost 60% of it, 64% of it is less than 30 years of age. But at the same time, is there real dividend of that youth bulge that we have? Because if we look, and you mentioned, Arslan, that we have to move from low productive, that is agriculture, to industrial sector, right? But some of the recent studies show that the human cost is much more with the development of new technology than the capital cost per unit of produce. So do you think that we still have this youth dividend if we move to industrial sector from the agriculture sector, or do we still need to focus on agriculture sector and improve our productivity?
I think the thing that's special about the industrial sector is that it's dynamic. You learn, but you learn by producing. You learn new management techniques, you learn new production techniques, you learn how to apply innovation. Right? And again, the stage that Pakistan is at, it's not, at this stage, countries don't grow by innovating, they grow by learning from others and by doing stuff and learning from them. Now, I think what you mind, if I understand correctly, is the new the AI, the trend towards AI technologies, right? And whether that has any implications for the youth bulge, because yes, it's great to have a huge proportion of the population that's young. They are going to be part of the workforce for the foreseeable future, and that should generate output. Right? Okay. But again, keep in mind that at this stage in development, Pakistan is not involved in the AI is not innovation. It's learning by doing simple stuff. And as long as there's demand for that simple stuff and it doesn't get replaced by AI, there's opportunities for employment generation in the industrial/manufacturing sector where the learning is, right? I think it's what you raise is an important issue, and it's going to be a bigger issue 3 decades from now. But the window is still open for a country like Pakistan to benefit from a youth pulse, which, the youth pulse is going to keep wages low in the industrial sector. That's the effect that it should have. The AI trend, on the other hand, would move production away from sectors. If it moves into labor-intensive sectors, it would move production away from sectors where there's demand for industrial labor, and that should put further, that should lower demand for labor. But I think that's not an issue right now. I think that's an issue 2 or 3 decades down the line. I think maybe I'm being too optimistic, but I think that's not an issue for the next couple of decades. I think the issue still is having that youth bulge sent into sectors where they can learn so that we can progress into further, more advanced, more sophisticated stages of industrial production. So I wouldn't worry about the youth, about the AI too much at this point. That's my opinion.
Okay. And Dr. Aisha, we've been debating since morning that agriculture is a sector where we have very low productivity and we can really reap more benefit if we invest in agriculture sector because of our low productivity yields, and it is not, very intensive, machine intensive kind of industry or mechanized. So do you feel that we should be focusing on agriculture? Because even if we move on to manufacturing sector, there are more jobs and there are, downstream and upstream small and medium enterprises which could be supported. So as a sector, microfinance sector, what do you think should be our focus? Should it be on the agriculture sector, manufacturing, small scale manufacturing sector?
I have to say this to you that I'm a firm believer that we have neglected agriculture in this country far too much. And I have to also say that since I think since General Musharraf's regime, if I remember correctly, the focus got diverted. See, not only do we need a strong agricultural sector to feed and ensure food security for our 247 million people, we also need, it is 40% of our manufacturing is linked to agriculture through its backward and forward linkages. So there is no way that we can just neglect the agriculture and move forward. We need to better increase its productivity. We need to restructure it, take it away from make it more productive. Look at our neighbors. I was sitting there in Punjab and our neighbors on the east. The productivities were massively different. We need to focus on agriculture, make it more productive. Our productivities are much lower than what they should be because of various factors. Because of fertilizer mix, because of the way we are using water, because of the cropping pattern and what have you. So, use of pesticides and so on and so forth. We can improve it. So I am strongly, very clearly in my mind that agriculture has to be promoted. And let me also say this to you, that it can be done. In Punjab, which is the backbone of the agriculture sector, it used to be, Pakistan used to be the bread basket in subcontinent India. I don't think should change much. And more importantly, because 40% of your industry through backward and forward linkages is linked to the agriculture sector. So it's an area that you need to put in. increase in productivity, and increase in the infrastructure, more credit to the agriculture sector is extremely important. Putting in right policies, focusing on water sector, focusing on the irrigation sector, getting the input pricing and the output pricing right is extremely important for us to move forward. And let me also say this to you, that when I was in Punjab, just to cite an example, we started a scheme in which we started giving microfinance through the microfinance institutions like Apuvat and RSP and the other smaller banks. And in a span of 1.5 years, we were able to increase that interest-free financing to the smaller farmer with land holdings up to 5 acres or so, dramatically. And I think, if I remember the numbers right, more than 350,000 loans were given to these small farmers, 85% of which never had access to formal finance before. So giving those kinds of interventions were very useful, and they were able to not only increase the productivity and increase the farmer's income, but they went a long way in overall improving the growth rate of the nation. From -3%, I remember in 1 year we went to +3%, which means a 6% increase in a year. So don't give up on agriculture, and don't give up on our youth, because see, you provide them the right kind of training. The question here is that, is our education system giving them the right kind of training? Which, are we churning out skills which are demanded by the labor sector, the industrial sector, the agriculture sector, or not? No. Are we giving them the employment opportunity? We need macroeconomic growth to give them those employment opportunities. The study that we did at one stage was that the country needs a 7% growth rate to fully employ the youth. 2 million additional youth every year entering the labor force. And I give you a very startling statistic which really bothers and concerns me. If you have idle youth is when youngsters are neither looking for a job, they're not getting educated, they're doing nothing. They've given up on the system. They're just walking around doing nothing at all. You have something like 11 million idle youth in this country. Imagine what resource we are wasting because we are not getting our policies right. And I think I would, not because I'm speaking in your conference, I think microfinance, along with increasing finance for SME sector, agriculture-related, agro-based manufacturing, dairy products, all of these are areas, IT, that we really should be focusing on. You will engage youth, you will get them, you will increase productivity, you will lower poverty. Mind you, these are sectors, if you invest in them, you will have a direct impact on increasing employment and lowering poverty, which is a major, major issue in this country at this point of time. So don't give up on them, have the right kind of a policy mix, and we can make it.
Okay.
And I think I cannot emphasize enough on the need of improving the human dimension of growth in this country. You yourself mentioned at this stage the UNDP ranking, and what is very catastrophic in my mind is that, if I can say this, if we are the only South Asian country which has been downgraded by the UN in terms of human development recently. From a middle development country, we have come down to a low development country. This is not a thing which any one of us can really be, we need to be ashamed of ourselves. Yes. Because of wrong policies, because of wrong priorities, because of too much happening and not priority on proper human development in this country.
Okay, thank you. One last question. Arslan, in your experience, what is the role of financial inclusion? I mean, providing financial services to the larger population, because we in Pakistan have, as you would be aware, very low, financial inclusion numbers. Do you feel that it is really an important area that we need to develop and can, support the overall development of the country? Because it, generally it is said, that it will become, it will bring a lot of efficiency.
I think Dr. Pasha is in a much better position to speak to that, but what I can say is that financial inclusion is important because in the Pakistani context especially, the saving rate is too low. That's one area where I think financial inclusion can really help, because ultimately saving generates investment if the system works well. And if you look at the numbers, investment and saving in Pakistan are quite low compared even to other South Asian countries. You're not even talking about China, where the investment rate and the saving rate were close to 50% in the 90s and 2000s. That's unprecedented, but obviously there are East Asian countries, more normal countries, where the saving rate is closer to 30% and the investment rate. In Pakistan, it hovers around the low double digits, right? Barely. That's where I think financial inclusion becomes really important, to generate the resources for investment. But I also think, again, coming back to the big picture, because I think in the larger scheme of things, you cannot have sustained growth as long as the balance of payments is not addressed. And savings would be key there to address, because the balance of payments in macroeconomic terms, it's also the difference between saving and investment. So deficits means there's not enough domestic savings, and inclusive finance can help in that sense. But again, I think it's important, but that's not where the crux of the at least near-term concerns should be, which is very simple. It should be the balance of payments. It should be, again, large, successful exporting firms which are able to compete internationally, so that that bottleneck is gone from the growth trajectory.
Okay, thank you so much. Would anyone like to have questions? And my request to you, keep it short. The comments would be given by the speakers. You just stick to very brief questions, please.
Thank you. Thank you. Idris Khwaja from formerly PIDE. So my question is that inclusive growth would come from if all and sundry have good opportunities. And opportunities in this age of technology would be available only to the more literate. And our literacy rate is only 60%. So in the context of microfinance, I want to ask, can the microfinance industry increase the volume of educational finance phenomenally, perhaps by redesigning the product, like depending upon the future income of the graduates, and maybe linking it with their employer? Perhaps the government can enact a law that just as the tax is deducted at source, the loan installment is also deducted at source from the salary of the graduate.
So the question, I hope you've been able to hear the question, or would you like me to, put it again? Dr. Aisha Arslan, have you been able to?
I had some, more or less, I think he's talking about microfinance for education, right?
Yes, absolutely. Microfinance and education, and what role the government can play in providing educational loans. Maybe Aslan, you can take the other one, and Dr. Aisha, if you can take the first part of microfinance and education.
Actually, let me say this is a very good idea, and I'm really, really supportive of it. Because, let me also take this opportunity to give you a little footprint of the microfinance sector in this country, and you'll see where we are and how much of a scope and potential there is for its escalation. We do see an increase, which gives us the very clear indication that it is growing and it has the potential of growth. If you give it the opportunity, the sector can grow. From what I believe, the overall, of course, you must have heard the overall numbers. It is only 4% of the total credit. Microfinance is only 4% of the total advances given out in this country. 432 billion or so. And SME is only about 7% or so. Look at in the overall scheme, the overall financial portfolio, what the size of microfinance and SMEs is. And look at the fact that we as a country, we all know, and I don't think there is any disagreement, that microfinance can really boost employment, particularly in these circumstances where where growth rate really needs to be jacked up, and people really who are falling out of employment are to be, get employed back, and where poverty has to be tackled. So microfinance, I think, can play a very, very important role in enhancing employment, particularly of the semi-skilled and skilled or skilled people, and SMEs, in giving a boost to the economy. And this needs to be emphasized, really, really emphasized. And also, let me also point out this, I don't know whether it's discussed in your report, in your conference or not, the deposit base of small depositors, the contribution of a small depositor to the overall deposit base in this country is 40%. And I'm calling small those who have 500,000 or so. Then advances given to such people is only even 11%. So if you want to tackle inequality and give more access and capital to these smaller units, these people who can give a boost to employment and can give boost to economic activity, we really need to focus it. And education, definitely, getting the right kind of skill training, getting the right kind of skills is absolutely important. And I think microfinance for education is a very good idea. Higher education, as is in the financial crunch. Public sector really has very limited resources for all of this. We have a budget deficit which is historic and has remained like this, close to 7% of the GDP or so for a number of years now. So what I'm trying to say to you, if you're looking up the government to perform a miracle for us, it's not happening. They don't have the financial resources. They're in the IMF program. The IMF program is saying that please do dedicate, don't cut back on expendings on social sectors. But what is happening? Do we see improved investments in social sectors? I'm afraid our social sector investments are still very low. Yeah. And what the IMF is asking us, one, it's more in the domain of the provincial governments, and the investments in social sectors, and secondly, we don't see that kind of an improvement, which is a kind of a disappointment for me, because I would think after the 7th NFC award, where the province has got a big boost, social sector investment should have given a real big jump. But to get down to the question, microfinance is doable. Hope from the government is not there, but the financial institutions, particularly can play a very important role. Microfinance can play a very important role in close collaboration with the industry, because they know what skills are demanded. Microfinance can fund the supply of those skills, and we can have a good match. The mismatch of supply and demand of labor is a very huge problem in our local labor market. So it will address that also.
Thank you. Arslan, quickly, if you can, shed some light on, especially the subsidized loans that are given to the students across the world and also in US. Do you think a country like Pakistan and at the stage of development that we are, is there a role for the government to have that kind of, schemes? Also, we see those in India. I mean, certainly India is now at a different level and in other countries. So in your opinion, is that the responsibility and role of the government?
I think the role of the government is to make sure, especially in a democracy, that the populace has a minimal level of education. Right? That could be primary education, secondary education, howsoever you define it. And in that sense, the government has a major role in ensuring that that market failure is addressed, that everyone has access to that minimal level of education. And it's also important if there's going to be a growth takeoff, whether from the agricultural sector or the industrial sector, it's important that people at least be able to read and have basic numeracy skills. So in that sense, it's a huge investment and no one can, I think, disagree with that. Again, that goes back to the bigger picture question of whether there is enough that the government can spend on education, as Dr. Pasha pointed out. And then we go back to the debate of what the national priorities are, because there are reasons why there's not enough funding available for education. And, if we are going to be serious about it, we would want to address those issues directly.
Thank you so much to both the panelists. I think the overall, if I want to summarize, both the economists and who are very well trained, and they've also, Dr. Aisha has been in the government. I think the best news is that there is a lot of hope. And if we work on the policies, consistently apply them, sincerely apply them, have professionals and people with knowledge, I think there's a lot of hope. Agriculture sector is certainly one, but as Arslan said, if we want to move on to more efficient, we need to move our labor to more, productive, high productive sector, which is certainly manufacturing. And in order to compete, we need to, because it not only, I think his point of view was not only helps in exports, but also create organizational structures, innovation. So India going to moon is not only an event, but just consider the kind of technology, the kind of learning, the kind of science that they must have developed within the country that have led to that stage. So I think that is what manufacturing also does. So with quite a lot of hope, I would like to thank both of the panelists for giving us time and educating us and giving us hope as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yasser, and thank you so much, Dr. Pasha and Arslan Saab. Can we please have Mr. Mohammad Murtaza Khokar come on stage to give a small token of the PMN's appreciation for this very interesting panel that Yasser Saab has hosted. Thank you so much. So we're on to our last session for the day, and this last session is on the journey of SAFCO from being an NPO to a for-profit company. This is going to be like a conversation which Syed Mohsin Ahmed will lead with Salman G. Abru Saab, who is the founder and president of SAFCO, and Ms. Amna Aziz, who is the director for lending and private fund at SCCP. Salman Saab, of course, is a stalwart of microfinance, is one of the pioneers of microfinance in Sindh. Abru Saab continues to up the ante and was the driving force behind the transformation of SAFCO to a for-profit company. Ms. Amna Aziz, Abu Saab, please stage पे आ जाएगा. Ms. Amna Aziz has over 2 decades of experience at the SECP. Her experience has been multifaceted and spread across monitoring and compliance, adjudication, and policy and regulation. She also leads the regulatory sandboxing committee at the SECP. Madam, can we please have you on stage? Over to you, Mohsin.
Okay, ji, Assalamu alaikum. So this is the last session, and after such an intellectually driven session, let me come back to something which is very close to my heart, and that is about the transformation that has happened in the microfinance industry. This is something I think majority of the institutions should move towards, because what we were discussing in the morning is about that we have hit only the tip of the iceberg. 15 to 20% financial inclusion. So if we want to move from 15 to 20% to say 70, 75%, which is for any industry very important to achieve maturity curve, and then you start getting your incremental cost cost of manufacturing or cost of putting out the next unit reduced, it becomes very critical. You need to have capital. You need to have equity with you. And that is not possible or has very limited possibility if you are a not-for-profit organization. I recall almost 4 years back, we did a leadership training in Dubai, and we invited the CEO of Ujjivan. This is an Indian MFI. It started its operations in 2002, when majority of microfinance institutions started their operations in Pakistan. The CEO came from, I think, HSBC, Dubai, and decided to set up a microfinance institution in India. And he said, the first thing I thought when I was thinking of reaching large number of Indian poor was that what kind of entity should I set up? Should it be a bank? Should it be a NGO? Should it be a non-bank finance company? And if this is going to be a non-bank finance company, should it be for-profit or not-for-profit? And he said that for me, the primary question was that we have to reach millions of borrowers, which require a balance sheet of trillions of Indian rupee. So I cannot do it being a not-for-profit entity. So the first decision he took was to become a for-profit entity with a vision of growth, not with the vision of not paying taxes. I'll be very open about it. So with that, I will now move into the transformation that happened. We have seen transformations in Pakistan, NGOs transforming into for-profit microfinance banks. This is something that has happened in the not-for-profit sector. And I must appreciate the decision that Sulaiman Abro Saab took and decided to become a for-profit company. So I'll start with this side is Sulaiman Abro Saab, who is the CEO and founder of SEFCO Microfinance Company and SEFCO Support Foundation. And on this side is Miss Amina. Miss Amina, who is the director with the SECP and looking after the non-bank microfinance companies. So I'll start with Sulaiman Saab. Sulaiman Saab, आपने जब ये फैसला किया कि मैंने एक फॉर प्रॉफिट कंपनी बनानी है, तो वो आपने क्या सोच करके किया? आपके दिमाग में क्या था? आपने पिछले 25-30 साल नॉट फॉर प्रॉफिट चलाई है, तो ये कोई आसान डिसीजन नहीं है किसी भी एंटिटी के लिए कि मैं इतना बड़ा स्टेप लूं, बिकॉज इट्स नॉट जस्ट अबाउट कि मैंने नॉट फॉर प्रॉफिट से फॉर प्रॉफिट होना है, मैंने टैक्स देना है या नहीं देना है, बट कोई बड़ी चीज होगी आपके दिमाग में जो आपने सोच के इन तमाम फैक्टर से निकले और आपने कहा नहीं, मैंने ये फैसला मैंने कर देना है.
Thank you very much, Mohsen Saab. मैं समझता हूं कि that is a wonderful step has been taken by the SAF course. Decision जो किया गया, that would be a wonderful. Which behind we discuss a lot within the organization, and the management has discussed. And after that, we also discuss with the board, and we discuss how we may increase such kind of the volume of the benefit of the people, and how we increase and how the growth would be. Because the growth and success would be very much important, but the progress, how it would be. हमने सोचा कि ये हम जहाँ भी डिस्कस करते हैं अपने इदारे में लोगों को इस प्रोसेस को शामिल करने में, तो हमने फील किया कि people are thinking about that is the mentality of the people. They are thinking that you are doing a business as a microfinance. When we are talking with the bankers, the investors, and in the society with the different people, they are thinking you people are the NGO, and mostly आप जो है वो charitable काम करते हैं और ये लोगों के फलाह बहबूद के लिए है. And the mindset in the society that this is the grant, or this is the aid, or this is the something other money, so they have not such kind of the responsibility to utilize properly. And we feel that in the field, that people have the mind that, okay, the money is coming from, might be that this is a donor money. And we discussed with the bankers, the financial institutions, they have already such kind of the mindset that you, the NGO people, and we people have not trust that how the such kind of the finance will be the secure. उसके बाद हमने देखा कि there's no legal patronage from the regulatory bodies, from the government side, from the central bank, as well as the local administration also. तो जहाँ भी अगर फॉर एग्जांपल कोई फ्लड आया तो गवर्नमेंट ने अनाउंस कर दिया कि हमने जितने भी कर्जे माफ कर दिए, तो द पीपल केम टू आवर ऑफिस, प्लीज गवर्नमेंट अनाउंस कर दिया, दैट्स व्हाई आपको अमाउंट आल्सो बीन राइट ऑफ में ये पैसा जो है हम आपको वापस नहीं करेंगे क्योंकि गवर्नमेंट ने ऐलान कर दिया. Who has announced? The deputy commissioner has announced. The local chairman has announced that आपका जो लोन है वो हमने माफ कर दिया. Such kind of the shocks we feel in the practically in the society, that we have need to think about that how it should be the commercialized. The people will be transformed about their mindset, and the people have need such kind of education, because education literacy is one of the major problem. And the other thing is that the utilization and proper realization of how to utilize the money proper for their growth. So we think that there are several challenges we feel, and उसके बाद हमने ये सोचा कि हम इस प्रोसेस को किस तरह से आगे ले जाएं. माजी में हमने बहुत सारे मसाइल से दो चार रहे और उसके बाद ग्रोथ नहीं हो रही थी. हमने सोचा कि still we are working since last 30 years and we are in the same boat. It has never been at the large scale. फिर देखा कि क्या होना चाहिए. Then we think about that, कि no, we have need to shift our mind what we have the practice in the field. So we change our practice, we change our mind, our practice, and our mode of the businesses, and after that we can educate the people and the financial institutions, the investors, and the society people, as well as the government, the regulatory bodies, as well as and central bank also. After that, we, thanks to although we have already understand through the study, and we also went in the different countries, we observed their mode of how they are working in their respective areas in their countries, and how they scale up their programs. When I've been in Cambodia, I was very much impressed about their operation. उन्होंने कहा कि we have the patronage by the central bank as well as the National Assembly by the government of the Cambodia, and the investors also and the international investors, they have the trust because of our for-profit identity, and we are doing such kind of the business in our area. And after that, we understand thoroughly our जो उनका पूरा business था, we understand, and we went in the different areas where they are operating their business in the different segment of the society. We understand a lot. Even in the Bangladesh, in India, and in the South, in the East Asian countries also, we went in the different countries and we understand. After that, we make up our mind, yes, first of all, we shift our mind, our business, and our modus operandi, then we can shift the people up who are very much needy. दूसरी ये बात कि हम जो लोगों को बिजनेस दे रहे हैं उसे आगे बढ़ भी नहीं रहे हैं. How the people will be scale up their businesses? How they may जो छोटा कारोबार कर रहे हैं वो how they may enter into the SME. After that, हमने thanks to the SACP and facilitation from the Pakistan Microfinance Network, and also we are very much thankful to the PMIC. They facilitate, and SACP has very much kind. They think about that. Okay, if you are in the process, and we will facilitate, and we will consider that how it would be. So after that, it has been considered. Why? It means when we came into the process, we then very much comfortable feel. Feel was that we scale up our program. We enhance our capital. And after that, we stepping forward towards the corporate ecosystem also. And after that, we went to the bankers. Now we are private limited company. When we feel that, yes, the confidence came into that. And फिर उसके बाद हमने देखा कि bank and investors, they have the confidence and they understand our businesses. Then they start the agreements, and many other investors also and bankers also in the Pakistan. मैं समझता हूँ कि now जो हम internationally भी investors को अपना program देते हैं, तो they are very much satisfied about इससे before was not. अभी हम समझते हैं कि FMO, the Bhopal, Sembotric, Blue Orchard, and many other investors are in the process of the agreement, and bankers also, the Central Bank, State Bank of Pakistan, and commercial banks, they have already agreements and they are doing business with us. So this kind of the scenario has been developed in the country. So I think that is a wonderful transformation process has been completed in the country, and we proud that this is one of the precedent we have set in the country, that how we can scale up the microfinance sector. The other one is there are many different, morning sessions they discuss on the agriculture sector. Agriculture is the backbone. We not able to increase. Okay.
Okay, so Ms. Amina, my question to you is that SECP. So SECP, I know that SECP has played a very facilitating role in this transformation. My question to you is, and now I know that at that time there was another team which was looking at it, but this since SECP is an institution, so that must have transferred to you. So what do you think were some of the 2-3 key factors on the basis of which SECP decided to form a committee? I know they formed a committee of their executive directors to support this transformation to happen. So what was very critical for SECP to take this decision and facilitate the microfinance sector? And I know at that time your commissioner was also engaging with some of our member entities for building their awareness that SECP has created that committee and this step should be taken by you. तो ये decision क्यों लिया आप लोगों ने?
Ji, Mohsen, thank you very much. You very rightly pointed out, SECP is very passionate about this thing, that these NBFCs that are not-for-profit do come up and convert into for-profit entities. One of the basic reasons would be that as a regulator, our mandate is to promote the growth and development of the microfinance sector. And we believe that with the liquidity crunch that these not-for-profit organizations face, they cannot live up to their potential of improving financial inclusion if they stay in the state of being not for-profit and do not convert. So this was one of the basic reasons because of which we basically engaged with the industry, and we basically asked them to think on these lines that the conversions can be possible. Because without having the liquidity and the lending capacity, they cannot increase their outreach. We know that, and we've seen that the NBMFCs have a very well-built and in-place structure on the field, whereby they have greater outreach than their counterpart, the MFPs. And their loan quality, in fact, has proven to be better than the counterparts as well. So we wanted to capitalize on that asset base or the client base that they have built and to enlarge that. And that is only possible if they have more liquid funds to lend. And that is possible when they convert into a profit organization, and then they can have equity stakes from investors. Their credit profiling becomes better, and they have greater chances to borrow from commercial banks as well. So this was one of the basic reasons for which we pushed this agenda.
Okay, also Ms. Amina, you know that one of the reasons, there are so many factors behind NPOs not making this decision, but one of them is about tax. So and the concept of not-for-profit is not that they can't make profit, but it is about that when you make profit, you can't distribute that profit. So given that these entities are willing to not distribute the profit to the owners, at least in the short term as they build their capital. Is there any chance that, like for MFBs, they were given a 5-year tax relief after that regime was created? Or there is this government tax relief where even commercial banks that lend to SMEs or for agriculture purposes, their tax rate is not, I think, the normal 43 or 44% that is there for the banking sector, but at 20%. Is SCP willing to look at these options of a 5-year tax holiday subject to no distribution of profits, or a lower tax regime for for-profit non-bank microfinance companies?
A very valid point, Mohsen. Just on the lighter side, fiscal matters are a bit out of our hands, and they're very sensitive as well. We were hearing Dr. Pasha earlier in the evening, and even she said that there's no much fiscal space that can be provided. But having said that, I believe that at SCP we are committed, and we have had these proposals from the sector as well. And on our part, what we intend to do is that we are going to forward them to the FBR with our recommendations. But having said that, we are under an IMF loan conditionalities, and that can be pushed to a certain extent. So we can't make any promises to that fact, because we won't be the regulator that would be allowing that fiscal space. It is FBR's prerogative. But at the SCCP's level, we will be advocating that, and that you can be assured of.
Okay, thank you so much. Acha, Suleiman Saab, my last question. आपने जब ये फैसला कर लिया, तो what kind of challenges आपने face किए? आप वो बताना चाहेंगे कि क्योंकि ऐसे प्रोसेस में आई नो रेगुलेटर ने तो आपको दे वर फैसिलिटेटिंग, दे वांटेड टू डू दैट, लेकिन उनकी अपनी इट्स एन इंस्टीट्यूशन, उसके डिपार्टमेंट्स के अंदर डिपार्टमेंट्स हैं. सो वो कौन से चैलेंजेस थे जो आपने इंस्टीट्यूशनल फैसले तो कर लिए, बट ओवरऑल इकोसिस्टम से जो आपको प्रॉब्लम्स आनी शुरू हुई, प्रोसेस में जो प्रॉब्लम्स आनी शुरू हुई, वो कौन सी, आप 2-3 अगर मेरे साथ शेयर करना चाहें. एंड नंबर 2, एक इंटरनल फियर होता है कि मैं जो कि मैं इसका फाउंडिंग हूं एंड आई वांट टू रिटेन दिस एंटिटी. ऐसा कोई डर था आपको कि अगर मैंने इसे फॉर प्रॉफिट में कन्वर्ट कर लिया तो कोई दूसरा आएगा और वो इसको ले जाएगा, और अगर था तो व्हाट आर द सिस्टम्स यू हैव पुट इन प्लेस ताकि इसको आप एड्रेस कर सकें या मैनेज कर सकें?
Thank you, Mr. I think there's no any fear in the leadership fear in the SAFCO. We have already decided that we are now at the moment there are 3 institutions are working as a SAFCO. One is the SAFCO Support Foundation, one is the SAFCO Development and Welfare, and now the subsidiary is the SAFCO Microfinance Company Private Limited. So there's already leadership has been designed and they are working, and there's no problem, they are working in properly. The challenges are only in the society. We are feeling that the system is not facilitating. We are expecting, although we are facing challenges, but we are expecting from the government as well as the regulatory bodies. For example, taxation is one of the major problem. So this is one of the example I'm quoting here, that once the government has announcing that we have declared in the different part of the country, if they declare that this is the industrial estate we have declared here, and they have the 5 years tax waiver, but here we are the merely the Private Limited Company as a MFI, we are expecting that the regulatory body maybe think about that, how they may be facilitated in the taxation. The other one is that the NADRA is also getting a huge the compliance charges about. This is one of the major challenges. The other challenge is we feel that the climate response, there's no climate resilience responses from the government side. For example, many shock we feel that in the disaster, like in the torrential rains, floods, and COVID, for the banks and many other has been facilitated by the government and central bank. But the MFI in the Pakistan never been considered such kind of facilities or the response climate disaster resilience response from the government side or the central bank as well as the regulatory body. The other challenges we are feeling that how the government may consider that the MFI's private limited company has been established in the country. Which would be the facilitation very robust and handsome some facility. I think there are many expecting we are facilities go from the government side, from the central bank, from the regulatory bodies. They may provide the other MFIs may be inspired, they may come forward for the private limited company. This is only for the security of the finance. We are thinking that in the Pakistan that would be another aspect. The investors may be very much comfortable and they feel confidence that, okay, the private limited companies, the MFIs are working in the country, they may be facilitated, they may be more secure in the country, and they come forward to support them. So this kind of things that I think is very much important. We are feeling that the challenges are. Otherwise, we are comfortable. There's no leadership, any crisis because we have already designed the systems. We have already succession plans have been prepared. So the 3 institutions are running wonderful,
And we are very much confident there's no fear of any ownership in our system, because being a human, we have the limited cycle in the world. That's why whatever we have, we learn from the education, whatever we have experienced. This is the, ये तो एक हम समझते हैं कि अमानत है society की, we should return to the society, and society may provide and forward to the generation. So this is our system.
Excellent vision, sir. Thank you so much. Acha ji, because we have a meeting, coordination body meeting between SECP and the sector, so we have to end this session. Before we close, मैं आप लोगों को ये बताना चाहता हूँ, we have prepared a case study. PMN prepared it in collaboration with SAFCO and SECP. This case study has been finalized. उसकी designing वगैरह हो रही है. This case study is about this transformation. So it discusses the vision of the founder, the vision of this regulator, and the processes that is required to make this transformation. तो ये book जल्दी on digital source आप लोगों से share की जाएगी, ताकि if any other not-for-profit MFI, NBMFI is looking at this transformation, they will have the documentation to make that transformation happen. So thank you very much, Ji. I am grateful to both the panelists, Ms. Amina and Ms. Amina and Suleiman Abro Saab for getting their input and their thoughts. Thank you very much.
As a token of your appreciation, for our appreciation for you being part of this session, we have a small memento. Mohsin Saab, if you can please give the memento to Ms. Amina. Mohsin, can you please give this to Mr. Abru? Thank you so much. Thank you, Mohsin. Thank you. जी, आपको भी of course मिलेगा. Please wait करें, मैं Miss कोतवाल को बुलाने की थी. जी, Miss कोतवाल, please, if you could come on stage to give the memento for Mohsin. Finally, the memento has come out of its box. Thank you so much. Now we've all been able to see it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Bilkul. Thank you, everybody, for your participation. We've had a longer day today. Tomorrow we will end at 4. So thank you for your participation, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow sharp at 9 when we will have our first session on digital transformation and digital financial inclusion in Pakistan. Thank you so much. With that, we'll close for today. Allah Hafiz.